In Texas, we believe in one thing. Make it two things: action and results.
Governor Abbott promises steps to prevent future tragedies after the shootings in El Paso. The first step, a roundtable meeting at the Capitol. For perspective on the big stories in Texas politics, we turn to our panel. Patrick Svitek is the primary political correspondent for the Texas Tribune, and we have our own politics reporter, Phil Prazen, joining us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So the governor and others have called this roundtable productive. I think everyone's wondering kind of what are the specifics that are going to happen, and one of those was a possible expanding of background checks that the governor talked about, but a lot of people are saying maybe that's not realistic in Texas. What do you think?
You know, it's been interesting, even in the wake of the shooting, the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, no moderate Republican by I think anyone's account, was talking about potentially expanding background checks, not going to what people would refer to as universal background checks, but maybe expanding them from where they currently are. And Abbott, at least after the roundtable, said that that was an issue that was discussed. He didn't seem to suggest there was a consensus on it, but he said that it was an issue that was discussed and that will continue to be discussed.
One of the talking points in the recent town hall we had with the governor, he rejected the idea of red flag laws again. But now in these roundtables, he's brought up the idea of welfare checks. Is that kind of the same thing?
It's not really the same thing. I mean, a red flag law would be a court, you know, friends and family going to a judge to remove guns from somebody because they think that they were going to commit a crime. Now, that's an actual process that we have similar processes already in place that they could just replicate and expand to this. The welfare checks seem to be more vague, you know, hey, I'm going to call the police just to see if you can come and do a mental health check on this person. Nothing about taking guns away, just a checkup to say, hey, we're watching you, for lack of a better term.
The way that Abbott, the governor, discussed this issue after the roundtable, it struck me as him trying to find some compromise territory here. After he raised the issue of red flag laws after the Santa Fe high school shooting, and you know, he kind of put it on the table, and there was swift backlash from within some in his own party, and then he backed away from it. And so he's already felt some of the political heat that comes up around this issue. But at the same time, there are some Republicans, a lot of Democrats who do like this idea of red flag laws and do want him to go that path. And so it seems like on this issue, him bringing up this concept of having welfare checks instead, which again is certainly not the same as a full-blown red flag law, is at least his effort to maybe find some middle ground here. But it's a political tightrope.
As talking about the politics of this, I mean, everybody, the context of this is that Texas is a more competitive state, Republican versus Democrat. And so this whole conversation is kind of new and interesting for all of us political watchers, because if Texas was still a primary, you know, Republican versus Republican state, and that is what determined the state leadership, we would never be having these conversations to begin with. So just now that there is competition from the Democrats, is forcing the state leaders to tack towards the middle on these issues, especially to appease like suburban women who are really sick of their students and friends getting shot, going to Walmart, going in schools. I mean, the political stakes of this and the political stakes of doing nothing are really high for Republican leadership.
Yeah, Greg Abbott's not up for re-election next year. The Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick isn't, but a lot of state House members and members of Congress are up for re-election in suburban districts where these issues of safety and combating gun violence increasingly matter.
Patrick, Phil, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Josh.
Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.